Mark Fleming is the founder and creative director at Lone Spruce Creative. Kevin Sennett is the director of photography and production lead at Lone Spruce Creative. Mark and Kevin run a media production house out of a renovated mill in Biddeford. Their clients include Colby College, the Maine Office of Tourism, Luke's Lobster, Maine Spirits, Harvard Business School, and Bangor Savings Bank. They specialize in creating intimate visual content that allows brands to tell their story in an authentic and engaging way. Coming from a journalism background, their process has always been centered on putting the story first, then creating dynamic visuals that push that narrative forward. Both Mark and Kevin are Mainers who, after having spent time in Boston fresh out of college, moved back to Maine to pursue their careers in media. Having first met chasing race cars on the dusty roads of the Maine Forest Rally, they have been friends for over a decade. Kevin lives in Yarmouth with his wife, Nico, and their 2-year-old daughter, Everly. Mark lives in Biddeford with his wife, Jennifer, and their rambunctious pit bull, Bella.
Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. So Mark, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Yeah, of course. I started my career as a still photographer and I went to college for photojournalism thinking that I was going to be probably a war correspondent or a frontlines photographer. And I quickly realized that I probably wasn't set up to do that. And that wasn't necessarily the best route for me. So I ended up shooting for magazines a lot, actually. And I did some work in Boston and then found myself, surprisingly, I feel like as a lot of Maine kids do, coming back to Maine. I ended up doing a lot of work for Down East magazine, spent some time on their editorial staff, actually, as their director of photography, so working kind of on the other side of the desk, and then found myself making my way into the video world here with the help of my business partner and longtime friend, Kevin.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And I know you and Kevin have known each other for quite a while, and Kevin's with us today also. So Kevin, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Yeah, so when Mark and I first met, I might have still been in high school, but I was taking a commercial video and communications class there at the high school at UTC, studying video production, and went on to SMCC for video and audio production. And then from there found a really great job with a local company out of Portland, Octagon Inc., who worked with a lot of professional athletes in the Olympic and action sports division. So I got to create video for them for social media channels for a lot of professional athletes. From there, I went on to do some car commercials here and there in New England, and then eventually landed at a production company in Portland called 360 Media Ventures. And we developed a lot of branded content for Subaru and Red Bull, Under Armour, and that was all aired on NBC Sports and Outside TV. And then when my daughter was born, left that position and finally solidified things with Mark and joined up. And here we are.
Sounds like between the two of you, you have a lot of really valuable experience.
Yeah, I think combined we're close to 30 something years in the business. But yeah, we've seen it from all angles, I think. And like Kevin said, we met each other by chance while photographing a rally race in northern Maine, and ever since we've kind of been looking for a way to combine his love of video, my love of still photography, and finally found a way after so many years.
So what is a media production company exactly?
That's a really good question. We kind of focus on creating media. And of course, that can exist in many different ways for many different companies. There's, when it comes to content, you have written content, you have video content, you have still imagery, you have animation, there's all sorts of things. Lone Spruce focuses on creating still images and video content. And like any media reel, production brand, we're working to create that content for companies to help tell their story. So when a company is looking to say, hey, here's who we are, here are the things that we do, we work closely with them to find an interesting way, a visually pleasing way to really get out there and show the clients what they really want their customers to see and kind of show their brand statement in a visual way.
Well, I'm glad you used that word brand because, when I think of really great photography and really great storytelling, I do think of branding. And my interpretation of the word branding is it's how your target audience feels in their heart and their mind about your brand. And really your audience is the one I feel that really owns that brand because it's part of them. It's like how they feel. So obviously really great photos and really great video helps convey that feeling that, the audience or the customer base or brand ambassadors, feel strongly about. And my career goes back to my days at Sugarloaf, where I started doing public relations a long time ago. And Chip Carey, who has been on the podcast with me, he was my boss. He was the vice president of marketing. And he was like, yeah, skiing is a visual sport and you've really got to convey the story using visuals. So I learned really early on how important it was to have really great photography and video. So
yeah, for sure.
I understand the value of it.
Yeah, and it's a great point that, the brand doesn't start with or stop with the company. It encompasses its consumers and everybody who's kind of in that lifestyle of the brand.
Yeah, because every company wants that most coveted form of marketing, which is word of mouth marketing. So if you can get your most enthusiastic customers or your brand ambassadors, if you can get them excited with your content, whether it's visuals like video or photos or stories, and then have them share it, like that's gold to any company, is to have people sharing it with others that are like them.
Yeah, I think when you are able to connect and show somebody what, you're not ever trying to connect with the product itself per se. You're trying to connect with what people feel about it. Like you said, Nancy, and I think that's where we come in, is trying to show people what life would be like if you were here, or the story behind this widget, or whatever the case may be. You actually have to find that story and then help tell it, and then people kind of help connect with it.
That's right. Yeah, that's what you want, is people to picture themselves there, wherever there is.
Right,
or
exactly.
Using that thing. So what has been your most exciting production?
Maine tourism over this past summer has been really exciting, especially one of the trips we made for Maine tourism was up to Libby Camps, where we got to hang out at, Mark, is it the oldest hunting camp in the country?
It's one of the oldest, but we kind of came up with an idea of this summer, obviously coming out of the COVID pandemic kind of shutdown. We were like, okay, where can we go? What can we do that's going to be something that's off the grid, something we've always wanted to do? And flying a float plane into a secluded lake in northern Maine doesn't get much more off grid than that. So we kind of found out who was the best of the best, and Libby Camps kind of came to the top of the pile. And so, yeah, we hiked up there with a good group of people and hopped on a plane. And yeah, Kevin, we spent a couple of days there, right?
Yeah. And talk about exciting. That was something that, like, just growing up here in the state, you kind of only dream about. And it was great to just get up there and tell their story. Well,
I love Libby Camps, and previously have worked with the Orvis company. And I know that Libby Camps is an Orvis fly fishing camp, and that is a great credential that they have right there. So I know that Matt Libby and his family really have run a first-rate operation there.
Yeah, and having Orvis there was, well, it was great because they outfitted us with everything that we could possibly need in order to get the production done.
Yeah, it's
Wow, yeah.
special to be able to go down a dirt road for over an hour and then land in this place that you'd never imagined, and find great food and, like you said, a full Orvis setup, and hop on a plane and go out to places that most people can't get to. So it was a perfect example of trying to tell that story that a lot of people don't get to experience, but being able to show people is really a special thing.
Yeah. What's the saying? Show me, don't tell me.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So who is your dream client?
That's I mean, we love working in the outdoor kind of industry, and Maine tourism allows us to do that, but honestly, we like working with a lot of tourism clients and getting to showcase different places. And this time of year, the Bahamas seems pretty nice. So Bahamas tourism wouldn't be bad right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could take a little Bahamas right now myself. Well, we're going to continue our conversation with Mark and Kevin shortly, but first I want to tell you about my new book, Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand, which is available now on Amazon.com as a paperback or Kindle and even Audible edition. The book includes actionable advice on growing your network and growing a brand by taking care of your audience. And it's really funny because I'm doing some physical therapy as a result of old ski injuries, actually. And my physical therapist just sent me a thank you note in the mail. And I was like, wow, that was a really nice gesture. And he said, well, I just read this amazing book that recommended that you send notes in the mail. And it took me a second to realize it was like my book that he had read. So, yeah, sending notes in the mail is just one way that I recommend you connect with your audience. So, I do recommend that you read Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. And we're going to hear a little more from Marshall Communications now, and then we'll be back with Mark Fleming and Kevin Sennett.
Do you want to grow your client or customer base? Perhaps increase brand awareness? Maybe tell your unique story more effectively? Of course you do. But you may be worried that you don't have enough expertise to make that happen. Well, no worries, PR Maven Nation. Let the PR Maven herself, Nancy Marshall, show you how easy it is to get your message across effectively using a powerful yet simple tool, a message map. Nancy's training is often called informative and constructive, well-designed and impactful, with a perfect blend of theory and real-life experience. You will leverage Nancy's expertise to create your own message map when you register for this comprehensive online video training course, which is broken down into 4 easy-to-understand modules. Normally, this course is priced at $147, but for listeners of the PR Maven podcast, that's you, PR Maven Nation, it's only $29 when you enter the code word podcast during enrollment. It even includes a workbook and bonus content to guide you through the process. So go to prmaven.com and click on the Message Map Mastery course to enroll today. Remember, enter the word podcast during enrollment for a special discounted price of $29.
Welcome back. And today we're talking with Mark Fleming and Kevin Sennett from Lone Spruce Creative. And I want to dive right back in with more questions. Any suggestions for people who want to get into media production, Mark and Kevin?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it's funny. We get a lot of emails about this question, and people who come from all walks of life and who are in different stages. And I think the best piece of advice that I received, and the best piece of advice I try to pass on to everyone, is that you got to go out there and create. And whether that means writing, taking photos, taking videos, drawing, whatever it is that you really feel passionate about, there is no excuse, as many as we can come up with, for not creating. And I think that that's the thing that we realized and kind of fell in love with, is if you do that, if you get out there and write about something in your backyard or go photograph your neighbor, those are the things, those passion projects that'll actually help you when it comes time to show your work. And that's the second piece of advice. Show your work to as many people who will look at it. Take the feedback, whether it's positive or negative or in between, but really it's get out there, make work, and then show that work as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think our passion projects, really have led to a lot of our, paid work, and just going out and creating what you want, get you clients who then want that same kind of work, as opposed to, falling down the trap of doing a lot of work that you don't want to do. So I think creating stuff that you're interested in is going to help you get more jobs that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think people do make the mistake sometimes of thinking, especially in a smaller market, Maine being an example, well, I have to do everything. And I need to be good at everything because I can't turn down anything that comes my way. And I think the mistake that happens there is that you miss the opportunity to show what you actually want to do and that there is a market for it. And that's, Kevin's right. When we meet with clients, I would say almost always we show our portfolio, and the work that they're drawn to is the thing that we did by ourselves with minimal crew or paying people with good food and just hanging out. And that's the kind of thing that I think sometimes gets overlooked, is that you really have to use what you have available to make something you're really proud of.
Well, I love that idea of creating, whether it's writing, drawing, shooting video, or shooting photos, because yeah, I mean, the more practice you have and the more experience in different settings and different backgrounds, I think that will definitely help. I know that definitely helps with public relations and people who have done a lot of writing. It's really important, I think, in PR to have strong writing. But that leads me to my next question, actually, which is, how does great imagery aid in a great PR campaign?
Yeah, I think, any great PR campaign is going to come across as cohesive. So, part of what we do at Lone Spruce Creative is visuals, and that's just, that's photo and video that come across as a cohesive piece along with the story, and getting that across all channels. Your consumers or your target audience isn't just going to be watching TV or just on Facebook or just on one platform. So making sure you're hitting everything with this one cohesive campaign that, tells one story.
And I think the being cohesive transfers also into the aesthetic of speaking with the brand, talking with your brand, and saying, okay, what is it that we're trying to show people? And then, the challenge, and this is where we come in, is okay, we got to go create this and make sure that what we're showing matches the other collateral. And I think, you actually made a great statement earlier, Nancy, about saying, show me, don't tell me. And it's true that people really connect with visuals. And we are spending obviously hours a day looking at a lot of visual content, and we're scrolling and we're swiping and we're doing all sorts of different things. And if you're able to create content that makes people stop, makes people say, hey, I want to listen, I want to read more, I want to look into this, then that's something that's really, really valuable, especially for a PR campaign. It's creating content that's unique, and it's creating content that is going to actually, stop that scroll, as I call it. And I think that's the challenge, but it's the challenge that we really enjoy, and that's what we do, is tell that story.
Well, I think you make a really good point about having a cohesive look and feel that ties across the photos and the video and even the brand voice that you use for the writing. And in my mind, it's all about really understanding your targeted audience and who you're trying to connect with and what's important to them. Sometimes it's like what keeps people up at night, like what are they worried about, and how can you solve their greatest problems? And, maybe it is just like right now, a Bahamas getaway. We're going to have to call the Bahamas Tourism and Office and see if they want to sponsor this edition of our podcast.
There you go.
So, yeah, I think it all starts and ends with connecting with your target audience. And sometimes imagery goes a lot farther than words in making that connection.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits you can do is find a niche and kind of own it, right? Like, I think Tim Ferriss was the one who said, like, don't waste your time trying to win over consumers who would never buy your product. Find that niche and then expand inside of that niche, and you're going to have much more engagement with your brand.
That makes a really good point. Yeah, because it's hard to be all things to everyone, but
Yeah,
not as hard to be really great in one narrow vertical.
Yeah, and I think
exactly.
the thing that kind of stands out to me that we've really noticed is, of course, we've worked with many different brands, and we have the unique ability to see a lot of different niches through their eyes and kind of get a vision of talking about what their customer base looks like. And I think that is something that if people are aware of, if they're able to articulate clearly, hey, here's, you know, the person that we're trying to connect with, then we are then able to say, all right, let's learn about that person. Let's create something that, like Kevin said, really identifies with that person. And so that's how you do that stopping of the scroll. Because if I'm going through my own Instagram feed and I see something that uniquely connects to me, I'm going to take that extra time. Whereas if you see an ad that seems generic, or if you see an ad that just doesn't seem like it's in any way your wheelhouse, then yeah, it's just noise and you move past it. So that's the real fun part, is finding the story. And no matter what it is, if it's a big brand or if it's a small company making, you know, a small widget, there's a story there. There's a reason that this brand exists, and we have to find it and then find a way to tell it in a really cool and concise way.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I think the expression "stop the scroll" is a good expression, and of course, we wouldn't have been talking like that like 10 years ago. But now with so many people scrolling through social media, yeah, you want to stop them. You want them to like those images. You want them to share and comment. So that's all part of a great PR campaign. And also, from my perspective too, if I'm pitching a media outlet and I can provide really great photography or video to go along with a story idea, sometimes that helps make the difference between getting a story out there or not. Now, publications like Down East oftentimes will send their own photographer, but sometimes in the travel PR that we're working on, we have to provide photography, and we've sometimes gone to incredible lengths to get photos, sometimes at the last minute. I think Charlene, who has worked with me for probably like 26 years, she once sent a member of our staff on the boat out to Monhegan. Like, we had 24 hours notice to get some photo from Monhegan in order to get into the Washington Post or a big publication like that. And so we had this young intern, and Charlene's like, "Are you doing anything this afternoon? Because I need you to go to Monhegan." And we ended up landing a story. It was like above the fold. It was a huge story because we were able to provide really great photos. So even though the intern took them.
That's awesome.
That's no small task.
Yeah,
Just going
right.
out there.
So how do you market yourselves to prospective clients, and how have you developed your own personal brands?
I I work with Mark for a reason. This is really his wheelhouse, and does a phenomenal job at it. So, hire Mark Fleming to.
Well, thank you. It's interesting. It's something that we work in the world of creating, or I guess helping to create brands and helping to craft that narrative. And so there's a little bit of added pressure, I would say, on us to have a really great brand and to have a really great narrative. And I think one of the things that has always been important to me is we are in an aesthetically driven business, and we are creating beautiful imagery. And I think that sometimes brands who exist in that vertical forget almost about their own brand, and they forget almost about their own aesthetic, for good reason, in that they're always worried about the client. But one of the things that's been important to me is to say, okay, what does our brand mean? And for us, both of us having left the state of Maine, come back, we really value that outdoor lifestyle, that active lifestyle, and a lot of the things that people in Maine hold dear. And so Lone Spruce, the name in and of itself, kind of harkens to that ability to be in the outdoors, to experience that. And then we kind of built our brand around that. And so my main marketing goal to start was to say, okay, let's build a brand that may be a little bit more than just a production company. We wanted something that kind of meant something else, and that's something that people might aspire to want to learn more about or be a part of. And so when it actually came down to marketing techniques, a lot of it, as you know, Nancy, better than anyone, is about relationships. And so, Kevin and I, having worked in so many various spots and having been in this kind of market for as long as we had a lot of relationships coming into the business, but we also really worked hard on saying, who do we want to be? Who are the clients that we want to work with? And trying to find those people and have open and honest conversations that say, hey, here's what we're about. We want to find out more about what you're about. And I think taking that extra time, reaching out to someone, making sure that when you do reach out, whether it's an email or a phone call, you're not just doing mass marketing. You're not just copy and pasting. You're actually taking an interest. You've gone to their website, you've interacted with their product in some way. If you can show those people that you know about, what they're doing, it's going to go so far. It's funny because, again, as a brand ourselves, we get a lot of inquiries from folks who it's so clear that they're not sure what we do. They're not sure where we are. And, you just kind of end up in this place where you're like, okay, that you haven't taken the time to even learn about us, so we don't want to know about you. So that's the kind of, I think, give and take that we learned is create a really strong presence. And that comes from visuals. It also comes from, like you were saying, good copywriting down to, a good logo. And then once you have that brand, really value those relationships and make sure you treat people right. It's funny. A good friend of mine has a poster in his office that's, I think, is perfect for this, which is just be kind and work hard. And I think in the end, that there's no better advice. It's value those relationships and get up every day and realize that, what, I got to send some emails. I got to make some phone calls.
Yeah, I like that. Be kind and work hard. But definitely personalization when you're reaching out is important. A trend that I really do not like at all is people now who are connecting on LinkedIn, and then as soon as you accept their invitation, they're trying to sell at you. And I block those people so quickly. It's like, no, that's not the spirit of LinkedIn, to just invite somebody and then try to sell them something.
Well, you actually make a good point there too, is that I will say social media, it's tough, I think, to find the right avenue on social media to present your brand and yourself and find what feels right. But I know that, Kevin and I sat and thought about our Instagram for quite some time. And we finally decided, okay, what is it that, what do we want to share with people? What is it that people even want to see? And we ended up talking to some of our clients and asked them, like, hey, what makes you actually like take a second to look, as opposed to just saying, oh, here's another shot of X, Y, and Z. And one of the things that we started doing is sharing a lot of behind the scenes content. So showing people on set, showing us working, showing, a lot of our collaborators who we're so proud of and who we love to work with. And, what I think it did was it added a little bit more of a community level. It added a little bit of a behind the curtain, which I think kind of opened up a conversation with folks. I think sometimes if you're so polished, if you're so, everything is clearly content arranged, then I think some people lose a little bit of that personality. And by showing our behind the scenes content, I think people got a little bit more of a sense of who we are and that we are silly sometimes and that we do have fun and, what it's like to be on set.
I think that's really great because, yeah, people who follow you on social want to get a window into your world that isn't maybe, the polished window that you're showing to everybody on the outside. So that's great.
Yeah, I've been actually really surprised at how many people have been following us along as we've been moving into our new studio here recently. And it's a lot of very unpolished photos of, boxes stacked up, and Mark and I with power tools putting up cabinets and hanging slat walls and that kind of stuff. And I've actually been really surprised at how many people have mentioned they've been following around that whole process.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I will say, Nancy, we've seen that is you'll be surprised when people reach out to you. It's like, oh, hey, I hope the studio build out's going well, or I saw you guys on set last week. It looked really fun, and we kind of took a shot in the dark by changing our process. Prior to that, we were posting all finished work. We thought that that's we don't want to show anybody stuff that's not, our best of the best. But it's been interesting. And I think that people have definitely been drawn to that. And so that's really exciting for us. And it makes us feel a little bit better that, okay, we can kind of let our hair down a little bit when it comes to this.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you help brands tell their story?
Well, I think we approach that in a way where, when we talk to brands, we want to look at it as like a partnership, and we try, like Mark was saying earlier, we're trying to get to know them the best as we can to, get as much information about them so we really know their story and can translate that to their consumers or to their target audience. Because we have to have a really good understanding to kind of build maybe the lifestyle around their brand and to get that out to their target market.
Yeah, I think one of the things, Nancy, that we've kind of said to ourselves, and it's funny, we have a little post-it note, certainly nothing fancy, but hanging in our office that says story first. And I think what we've learned is that when we have these kind of get to know you meetings with brands, a lot of people, actually a surprising amount of people, will say to us, the first thing they'll say is, well, we don't really have a story. And then, it's funny because I think our first response is always, well, how did you guys start? Start with the very beginning. And everyone has a story, and I think that when you look at the heritage brands, if you look at, Woolrich and Filson and some of those companies that really tap into that heritage, that's what people sometimes are thinking of when they're like, well, we weren't, started in 1824 by someone, I think that they forget that everyone has a story. And that if you really think about it, that's an interesting, passionate thing, because you wouldn't have started this business or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you didn't feel that. So, it's funny. I think part of our job is to get that out of them and help them realize that, yes, there is something here. There is something we're proud of that we want to share. And, whether it's a furniture maker who spends hours and hours crafting a piece, or it's a company that does web design, but they are able to take, what they do and transition that into something that allows a small business to actually sell online worldwide, whatever it is, there's a cool story there. And I think what our job is to say, okay, your story is this. How can we present that? And of course, in the world that we live in, how can we present that in a short form video that'll make it onto social media, that'll play on your website, that'll be a part of your LinkedIn profile? So it's that, it's that kind of push and pull almost with our clients of, we want to tell that story in a very authentic way, but also in a way that's going to get their message across as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Well, of course, that's what we do when we're working with clients on creating our Marshall plans, is help them. We write what we call our brand manifesto, which is not only sort of the history of a company, but also what is their mission and their vision and what are their guiding beliefs. So sometimes you really do have to dig deep, especially with Mainers.
Oh, yes, very true. Very, very true.
Sometimes very hesitant to tell their own story.
Yeah, it's that humble. They're so humble that sometimes they really have a hesitancy. You're absolutely right. And it's funny because a lot of those main brands have such rich stories, and there's a reason we came back to the state. We absolutely love it, and you're absolutely right too. Working with you guys in the past, especially with Charlene, it's definitely evident to see that plan in place and to see what you guys have helped people do, because it's sometimes tough to get that out of them.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm originally from Connecticut, and I sometimes tell people you need to have a Connecticut Yankee helping you to call out the story and then brag a little bit about you.
Exactly.
So is there a book, an app, or a website that you have found helpful, and why?
Yeah, I tend to listen to a lot of other podcasts. One of them is In Love with the Process, which is a podcast that doesn't just cover photo and video. It's hosted by a film director, but he works with everybody from musicians to, painters to anybody where there's like this creative process involved. And I think, listening to him and other podcasts on managing your time have been super helpful for me, at least.
Yeah, I think that we both are pretty voracious podcast listeners. I would say almost every couple of days we have a conversation about, hey, did you listen to, such and such? But I think In Love with the Process is a really great one. As far as like apps and things go, goodness gracious, we've gone through an awful lot of different programs trying to streamline our process because we're a small shop. Kevin and I do the majority of the work. And I think a couple things. There's one program in particular that's very specialized for what we do, and it's called Blink Bid. And it allows us to, again, with specialty tools for photographers and cinematographers, it allows us to help get things ready for estimates and proposals very quickly. And I think that's a program that we use almost daily. And then, Kevin, I know you're going to laugh at me for this one, but the other one that I think just has to be said is QuickBooks, because as creatives, I can certainly say that he and I end up looking at each other a lot of times and saying, okay, what's happening with taxes or financial? So I will give a shout out to QuickBooks, though they don't need one, because there's been many a day where I've been very thankful that I'm not trying to handle that entirely on my own. So I think those are big ones for us.
Yeah, anything that's going to keep us in the creative process and not so much in the running a business process is super helpful.
Yeah. It's kind of the funny thing about starting your own business. You say you like to make cupcakes, so you decide to start a cupcake bakery, but soon you find out that it really doesn't have anything to do with cupcakes. It's about hiring and managing people and paying the taxes and hiring lawyers and accountants and all of those advisors. Yeah. I started my business. Actually, this is my 30th year now that I've had my public relations agency, and I started it because I loved public relations. And then, oh my gosh, I discovered all the other aspects of running a business that are not as fun. So, yeah, I'm with you. The accounting part is definitely not my favorite part. So I'm very grateful that I have an amazing accountant in Brunswick, Maine, Casey Mangum, who's been with me for years and years. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that I will definitely say is that learning quickly to hire people who do what you don't do well is a big thing. You know what I mean? We are not financial people. And so, yes, 100%. Our CPA and all those people who help support our business are so valuable.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you say, oh, I can do that myself, but then you end up like draining all of your creative energy on, trying to figure out the taxes. So I think sometimes you do just have to bite the bullet and get the professional help, because then it allows you to really do what you're good at and shine.
For sure.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, like we just kind of talked about, Instagram is a really great way to kind of follow along with us. And we are just at Lone Spruce Creative. And then the other thing is, I would say to come take a look at our website, which is lonesprucecreative.com. I think that, obviously we have tons of links there for people to send emails or text messages or whatever they choose. But it's also a great way to kind of figure out what we're all about. We've got a nice little About Us section that tells a little bit of our story, but also lists all of our contributors and people we work with. So it's a nice little place to, say, hey, who are these guys and who do they hang out with, so to speak?
Well, I think that's awesome. And I think you guys should take a selfie of yourselves today on this podcast so that you can put it on your Instagram when the podcast comes out.
For sure. We'll definitely have to get it there. Absolutely.
Well, this has been really interesting and fun, Mark and Kevin, and you've really motivated me to think in more visual terms. I have to say, because I was originally more of a writer myself, I sometimes think of the written word, but I know just that, especially in travel and tourism PR, the power of visuals is just incredible. So I'm grateful for people like you.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. It's been awesome to be on.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, and actually, we just won a big award last night through the Maine Public Relations Council. We won a gold award for this podcast, so I'm very proud of that. And all the hard work over 136 episodes is paying off. So I hope everybody has a great day in PR Maven Nation, and we'll see you again next week with another episode. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.